I'm not gonna sit here. People are gonna say I should say I regret it, but I did it. I move on from it. I had a lot of fun doing it. Don't do that. Don't do what I used to do anymore.
Is it true that, you could be in a casino for 10, 15 hours and not even realize it? You just completely lose track of time?
Oh, no doubt. I played slots for 2 days in a row before. I played blackjack for a day and a half or 2 days before.
What do you mean? I mean, like...
One sitting, yeah. Only time I get up is to go to the bathroom.
You'd be in there for a day and a half or 2 days with...
Yeah.
Meet John Daly, a legend on the greens, but also a legend that loves spending greens. But how did the man who beat some of the best golf professionals in the world become addicted to the thrill of Vegas? And how did it get so far that he gambled away over $55 million? These are the gambling stories of John Daly, but before we get into that, let's dive into what John's youth looked like. Not much is known about John's early childhood, but the bits and pieces heard over the years paint a clear picture of a man who was forced into a mold that simply wasn't him. While he was born in preppy California, he got his trademark spunk from his childhood in Southern America. His father had a job that left the family constantly on the move, and on one of these trips, John found himself on the golf course, and it was an odd experience to say the least. He wasn't dirt poor, but the disconnect from other wealthier kids at the country club was still very obvious to him, a disconnect he'd feel for the rest of his life. Unlike those snobby tykes with professional trainers, John had to rely on only himself. He read books and magazines on the mechanics of golf and looked to pros like Jack Nicklaus for inspiration. At just 5 years old, John Daly became a beast on the greens. He was unstoppable, though golf balls weren't the only thing John was slamming at the club at that age. Later in life, he would recount getting drunk for the first time at only 8 years old, creating a sort of symbiotic relationship with alcohol very early in his life. When he was happy, he drank. When he was sad, he drank. When he was bored, he drank. As he consumed alcohol, it consumed him right back. As he grew older, these nasty habits only got worse. Saying that John Daly was just an unconventional golfer would be the understatement of the century. Nothing about him screamed, "I know what I'm doing," and John often used that to his advantage. He'd find the latest hotshot with a winning streak and challenge them to a money match. His unsuspecting victims would see John as easy money and take the bait. John continued playing golf throughout high school, with a drink never too far away from him. He claimed it helped him play better, a haunting quote echoed by many addicts. It's not like he had any proof to the contrary. He was a rock star on the course. He had as many stage championship wins as he did DUIs. Alcohol wasn't just a crutch, it basically became his new legs, and as far as John was concerned, he wouldn't have it any other way. His streak of wins on his home turf eventually grabbed the attention of the PGA Tour. Daly had just met the threshold to qualify, placing him squarely as a ninth alternate to the 1991 championship, but Daly treated it like anything special. It makes sense. There were 8 players in front of him before he was even considered for the tournament. It would take a miracle for him to get in. So he just sat back and relaxed as the days leading up to the tournament flew by, hitting his usual spots as he always had. Though the strangest thing happened. One by one, slots were opening up. Pro players were dropping like flies. One guy dropped out to be there for the birth of his baby. Another player sat out over an injury. Soon enough, John had found himself at the top of the call list. It was only a matter of time before his name was pulled next. With his chances to compete going from 0 to highly likely in a matter of days, Daly drove overnight from Memphis to Indianapolis in case he got that fateful call, getting a little buzzed with friends along the way. At 2 in the morning, he finally arrived at his planned hotel room. When he walked inside, there was a voice on the answering machine. He was in. At the time, Daly was a complete unknown, and now he was facing off the best golfers on the planet in front of millions of people. He was lucky he drank beforehand, or else he would have fainted under the pressure. Even then, John didn't give off the best impression. His late arrival left him hungover with little sleep. He had only enough time to gather his clubs for the morning. Meanwhile, even to have a shot at winning, he had to face some of the toughest holes in the country completely blind. Ironically, the one thing that helped him the most here was again his unassuming appearance. Compared to all the stuffy dullards on the course, the audience could easily relate to John, and he became a crowd favorite.
Which is 6 yards from the left hand he's going to make. 11 under par. Three-stroke advantage again.
Daly's moxie in the tournament was something that was hardly ever seen before or since. It excited people who didn't care about golf at all. To the average American, he became their underdog, sticking it to the elites on the field and showing them what the everyday person could do.
Now listen, the applause won't stop.
On the final hole, he crushed his competition with a 3-stroke lead, crowning him the 1991 PGA Tour Grand Champion. The crowd went nuts. This random 9th-place nobody from Podunk, Virginia just completely stole the show, and advertisers of the game took note. When John Daly joined the tournament just a couple nights ago, he really only expected to walk away with the $230,000 cash prize. That was until the mountains of sponsorship deals that came flooding through his mailbox. Sponsors saw the crowd's reaction to John's victory, and they rushed to capitalize off of his success. Through these deals, John saw more money than he'd ever seen in his entire life. Sponsorship deal after sponsorship deal came flooding in, and Daly saw more money in that instant than he ever did by winning, totaling over $1 million per year. It was a strange new feeling. He saw all this success, but didn't feel like he had earned it. The piles of brand deals only revealed another insecurity to Daly. What if this all was just a fluke? The pressure went straight to his head. He had to prove himself. While he'd win the 1995 Open Championship, he wasn't as lucky with other tournaments following his 1991 win. Every game he played from then on was just a reminder he wasn't at his peak. Daly would straight up leave in the middle of a tournament at the first sign of losing, and he'd frequently fight with other golfers, one of these fights ending with Daly throwing his clubs into the lake. He spiraled further and further with every loss. His over-reliance on the bottle had finally caught up with him, and his constant outbursts on the greens became harder to ignore. John Daly was taken into police custody for public intoxication, and soon after, his sponsorships paid him out of his contracts. Between this and his many infractions with tour officials, it was time for John to face the music, and in 1993, he finally admitted himself into rehab. It was a strange time in John's life. While he was recovering, he learned a lot about himself and his addiction. People on the inside told John he'd find something to replace drinking, something he loved even more so. And that something turned into a couple of things. He tried chocolate, Diet Coke, but these would only give a little bit of a relief to his cravings. He needed a stronger feeling, and he found that in gambling. Post-rehab, when Daly was brought back into the PGA Tour, he challenged the one and only Tiger Woods. Woods was still looking to make a name for himself on the pro golfing scene. And then here comes John Daly, stinking of Jack Daniels and melted M&Ms. It was a surefire loss. Anyone would be a fool to bet for him, and Daly knew this. For the first time, Daly had placed a bet against himself. So whether he wins the tournament or not, he was still walking away with a good chunk of change in his pocket. Predictably, Daly lost, but he still had won $750,000 from his wager with Woods. Although he had his money, it felt dirty. This wasn't money he won from any talent or skill, but rather his lack thereof. He had truly lost what had made his 1991 debut so special, and to ease his troubles, he went down to Vegas to gamble his winnings away. In his recklessness, Daly opened games of blackjack to $220,000 per dollar hand, hoping to capture the same beginner's luck he did in 1991, only to get absolutely destroyed. After a losing streak, he turned to anything that gave him that same sort of buzz. Football games, craps, poker, baccarat. If it was a game with a winner and a loser, Daly had already bet 20 grand on it.
Oh, no doubt. I played slots for 2 days in a row before. I played blackjack for a day and a half or 2 days before.
What do you mean? I mean, like...
One sitting, yeah. Only time I get up is to go to the bathroom.
You'd be in there for a day and a half or 2 days with...
Yeah.
How?
Just the time goes by so fast, and, if you're on a roll and you're winning, I just kept on going.
After just hours in the casino, John started dipping into his contract funds, figuring he'd get a new check in the mail at the beginning of the year anyways. He was playing with money he didn't have yet. He might as well have just flushed it down the toilet. After being only left with $600,000 in casino credit, Daly tried to play it smart, only putting his money into a $5,000 slot machine. But at this point, the real smart play would have been to cut his losses and walk out.
Knowing that if I took a lot less money in or didn't get a marker for it, the slots, you could last a little bit longer.
At these slots, he would blow $1.5 million in just 5 hours, more money than the average person would ever see in their lifetime. 2 more hours after that, it was all gone. He was penniless until next January, and this wouldn't be the last time he'd gamble everything away. Over the course of 15 years, he had lost $55 million in gambling, selling his house and his Mercedes in the process. All the while, he was struggling to pay for alimony, child support, and rent. Whenever he got a new paycheck, it was all spent at the casino. At this rate, he was going to spend his final moments at a slot machine. Daly had the greatest years of his life stolen by addiction. While he was shown improvement, fans are only left with a sinking feeling of what could have been the greatest golfer of all time. Now in his late 50s, Daly is faced with a grim reality. He had spent the last 30 years of his life drunk, mad, or a combination of the two, and at his big age, he started thinking about what kind of legacy he was leaving behind. With this in mind, he started his own clothing company and began several charities for veterans and children. Part of him wanting to genuinely better the world, and one to clean up his image. To this day, he's still trying to change his ways and fight his addiction. Hopefully one day soon, he'll conquer his urges. Till then, let his story be a cautionary tale of the dangers of gambling.
I think if somebody wants to quit drinking, and there's so many different ways you do it, just do it the way that makes you quit drinking. Like you asked me the question if I want to quit smoking. Well, it doesn't matter if other people want you to quit smoking or other people want you to quit drinking. It takes you to do it.